The 5 New Haven, Connecticut police officers that were involved in an incident that left a man paralyzed are now facing criminal charges. Let's talk about the details. My name is Jamal Kersey. I'm the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And in this video, we're talking about the June 19th incident that left a man paralyzed. His name is Randy Cox, and on that date, he had been arrested for being in unlawful possession of a firearm. So they end up putting him in cuffs and they put him in the back of one of these patrol vans. So you've seen them before. They don't have just the regular seating as you'd see in a regular van. They have these benches, sort of wooden benches, and there are no restraints or guardrails or seat belts to keep someone from moving around. But a lot of times these end up getting used with DUI checkpoints. So you'll see maybe 10, 15, 20 people end up getting arrested as a result of a DUI, and they get placed in these vans. And if you have people, kind of piled up on this bench, side to side, their shoulders, they're going to keep each other from moving around too much. But if you just have one person in there, then, you're susceptible to moving around a lot. And that's exactly what happened in this case. And when I heard this story about the officers getting arrested, there was, somewhat relief just based on the facts of what happened. But at the same time, I knew I was going to bring back those memories of seeing that video for the first time. And if you had seen it, I'm not going to put the clip here because, I just didn't want to, but you can go and look it up. It's the New Haven, Connecticut situation that left Randy Cox paralyzed. But at some point you see there's video of the actual cargo portion of the van. And at some point the van stops. And instead, because there's nothing restraining this man, he ends up just, slamming headfirst into that partition that separates the cargo portion from the cabin area. And so naturally, you can just imagine the pain that would cause to have you just unrestricted slam into a partition headfirst. And so naturally he was complaining. He was saying, I'm hurt, I can't move. And so the police officers, they did not immediately get him the medical attention that he desperately needed. No, rather they were making fun of him. They mocked him. They said that, oh, you're just faking it. Oh, you're just drunk. You're not really hurt. And so again, this guy just slammed headfirst into this partition and was in severe pain, begging for help. They wouldn't get it to him. And once they get to the station, to add insult to injury, they drag him out by his feet. He ends up getting placed in a holding cell, and eventually he then is transferred to a hospital, and ultimately it results that he was paralyzed from the chest down. And I just think the facts of this situation are so disgusting. Obviously, and to be fair, obviously I'm a defense attorney, and so with these guys facing criminal charges, you do have to, on some level, look at what would be potential defenses in this situation. But what I see is that, obviously the officers, they're not responsible for the maintenance of the van or the conditions in which they're given the van. That's on the city, that's on the police department. If you're having people transported in a van like this, you should have restraints. You should have seat belts or straps or something to keep people from sliding around and a serious accident happening like happened in this case. And interestingly enough, the city of New Haven has taken steps to actually correct this issue. So in their patrol vans that they use, they now are equipped with these safe belts or restraints to keep people from sliding around like this. But from what I understand, the officer at some point was trying to swerve out of the way of another car or a pedestrian. You see in the video because there's two different videos. There's a video that you see Cox hitting the partition, but you also see the video from the perspective of the driver. And at some point he's like honking on the horn at somebody, and that's presumably when he was trying to get out of the way of someone. And so, one of the positions of the officers would be, hey, we had no idea that this was going to happen. We had no idea that, the driver was going to end up having to swerve out of the way to avoid hitting someone. That is kind of a mitigating factor. They don't have any control over that. And again, they don't have any control over the conditions under which they're supplied the van. But where they do have serious liability and they were seriously negligent and, even criminally liable. Obviously, the district attorney has reviewed this case and decided to file charges against them, is where they had an opportunity to do something in terms of addressing this man's medical needs, failed to do so. Again, adding insult to injury, mocking him in this situation. And I think a very interesting issue that will ultimately emerge is whether this paralysis that he's now suffering from, whether that perhaps could have been prevented if he had received medical attention sooner. I'm pretty sure that's going to end up coming out. A lot of times in these criminal cases, then medical records will be released, and those are going to have some of the doctor's medical opinions. They may not go into that issue. That may be an issue for calling medical experts to make that determination as to whether this paralysis potentially could have been avoided if he had been treated sooner. But, that'll be an interesting issue that gets fleshed out. So the actual charges are second-degree reckless endangerment and cruelty by police to persons. And so these are both misdemeanor charges, so we're not dealing with felonies. But, it is refreshing to see that the district attorney reviewed this case and decided to issue it. Sometimes you see situations where they put the case in front of a grand jury, the grand jury fails to indict, or otherwise the district attorney will review the case and without putting it in front of a grand jury just makes the decision, we're not going to file charges in this case. So, I do believe that, the city of New Haven, the state of Connecticut, and the nation will be watching to see what becomes of this case. And I'll be interested to see if these guys, I believe there is one female officer as well, if they get convicted, what will be the sentence in this situation? As you probably know, a misdemeanor charge can carry up to a year in county jail, so we're not talking about prison, but I assume that none of these officers have any sort of criminal history, so they would be first-time offenders. But, in terms of the seriousness of this offense, we have a man who was left paralyzed ultimately, and they could have acted sooner and failed to do so. And again, made a complete mockery of the situation. Naturally, also, there's a civil suit that has been filed against the city of New Haven and the officers individually. And so, they're suing for negligence, excessive force, denial of medical treatment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Again, this man was left paralyzed from the chest down, so presumably, most jobs that he probably could have worked, he's not going to be able to anymore. There's going to be a huge loss of enjoyment of life, suffering paralysis from the chest down. This is just a nasty situation, and I gather there will probably be a pretty large payout, or at least there should be, in a situation like this. The mayor and the chief of police have both indicated their desire for transparency, for accountability, and that, justice is ultimately served. They both issued statements. And so that's good to see that you have a mayor and a chief of police that are interested in accountability and ultimately want to see justice served. But this is just a tragic story all around. At the end of the day, unlawful possession of a firearm under no means whatsoever ultimately warrants you suffering paralysis from the chest down. This man's life will never be the same again. And so, thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family, his loved ones. But that's going to be it for this story. If you got something out of it, please show me some love and hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you turn on those notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.